Hey guys, it's Ollie, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So bearded dragons are one of those animals that are kind of marketed to be beginner pets that are a little bit more complicated than most people are led to believe. So today I'm going to be going over the top 5 beginner mistakes that you can make as a new bearded dragon keeper. So starting off with the one that I see the most is enclosure size. So usually you can get a baby bearded dragon and house it in a 10 or 20 gallon tank and be okay for a little bit. However, that bearded dragon is going to grow pretty quickly, and so you're going to need your upgrade probably a little bit more sooner than you might think. Some people think that the minimum size requirement for an adult bearded dragon is 60 gallons. However, I disagree with that. I think that's a little bit outdated. I think the more appropriate minimum size is a 4x2x2 or a 120 gallon. Where on earth, ma'am, are you trying to go? So you just want to make sure that you are able to provide that adult size tank when needed. Also, you can start your bearded dragon out as babies in the larger size enclosure. So you could just get the adult size enclosure and start it off in that instead of having to do those upgrades pretty quickly and not. It's just like, you know, a big money saver that way if you just go ahead and invest in the larger enclosure. And for our next point, which is another one that I see a lot, is not giving your bearded dragon the proper diet that they need. For example, not giving the correct veggies. Some people like to just give their bearded dragons like iceberg lettuce, and that is mostly just water. Like, you can give iceberg lettuce to like give some hydration. It definitely shouldn't be a whole salad, and it should not be given like every day. Things that can be given everyday vegetable-wise are things like dark leafy greens. So things like collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, squashes. Those are a good staple vegetable for them. Another thing that I see a lot is people giving their bearded dragons a lot of fruit. You want to avoid that. Bearded dragons don't need that much fruit. It should only be a very occasional treat. It's just a lot of sugar, and it's just not very good for them. And now for the ratio. So as babies, bearded dragons need about 80% bugs in their diets, but as adults, it's the opposite, where they need about 80% of vegetables in their diet. So you have to be ready for that switch. Some bearded dragons are a little bit picky. You have to be ready on how to handle that. I've heard bee pollen is a great way to go around that. I didn't have to worry about that with her. I got her as an adult, and she's fantastic with eating her vegetables, so. Also, dusting is super important. Bearded dragons have to have their food dusted with things like calcium and multivitamins to stay healthy and avoid getting metabolic bone disease. As for bugs, I think a big problem with that is that people feed too many, but also don't feed like the right kinds of bugs. So you definitely want to avoid anything that is freeze-dried. You want live bugs for your bearded dragon. A lot of bearded dragons won't even eat the dried ones, and even then they're mostly just shell. You're not getting all of the good gut loading, and you're not getting all of the full nutrients of that insect. You can see her tail sticking out there. She's going to bed. But regardless of if it is insects or vegetables, you want to make sure that you are giving them a variety. Bearded dragons can get bored with their food, and it's also just not healthy to give them the same thing over and over again. So just make sure you're giving them a good variety of insects and vegetables. The third thing, and I know I'm going to get people that don't like this, but buying from pet stores, like chain pet stores. I'm sure you know the two major ones I'm talking about, but I definitely would not buy from those, mostly because you're probably going to get an unhealthy bearded dragon. So when you buy from a large chain pet store, the issue is that you're not going to get a healthy bearded dragon. They have really sketchy sources of where they get their animals. They're not well taken care of, and then since you are buying that animal, you are helping promote that. I will probably do a whole other video on why you shouldn't buy from big chain pet stores, but that'll be another day. For now, I'm trying to keep this short and sweet. So the way that you should go about it is you can go to local pet stores, obviously vet them, make sure that they're getting them from good places. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And you can also look online for breeders, just again, source them, vet them, make sure that you are getting the proper, basically make sure you're not going to get scammed and get a sick or possibly deceased bearded dragon, and make sure that you're not just giving someone money for like randomly breeding their pet, you know what I mean? So make sure you're going through a reputable breeder to avoid any issues. Alright, and my next one is cohabbing. So bearded dragons are not social. They are not social. You can get away with it if they are babies, but even then it's iffy. They do not want a friend. They don't want another bearded dragon around them. They're relatively like territorial, so you just want to just not do that. Just don't do it. At that point, they're fighting for resources. They will be stressed out. They do not want a enclosure mate. They just don't. Odds are they will fight. I don't care if there are people that have kept them for years and years and years. It can happen. It's a very high risk, and it's not worth the risk. And before anyone says that they occasionally are seen in the wild together, that doesn't matter. A life expectancy of a bearded dragon in the wild is significantly shorter than one in captivity, and there are reasons for that. So as they are in captivity, we need to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to let them live those long lives, since we are taking that responsibility on. And part of that is not cohabbing your bearded dragons. If you actually look at Prim, obviously I can't show you, I can try to show you some footage or pictures here, but she is missing some of her toes, and she's also missing the tip of her tail. She was a chain pet store lizard originally, and this is just how she came from the pet store where they were being cohabbed as babies. So even as babies, they can take toes off of each other, and it's not great. A lot of bearded dragons have things like that, where they're missing toes or tips of their tails or things like that, or like have injuries from other bearded dragons. So it's just not worth the risk. Just don't do it. That is the most important one, is just to do not do it. Number 5 in general is not doing enough research. I know that that's a little meh, but I think that it is a really important point. A lot of people don't seem like they do a lot of research before they get bearded dragons. Definitely always go to more than just one source. One source could tell you something and be totally wrong. You need to go to multiple sources and like cross-reference that information, find out as much as you can and what works best for you. And don't be afraid to keep learning information. Don't ever stop learning care, because it can change. At one point, I'm sure that it was acceptable to keep adult bearded dragons in a 20-gallon tank. It is no longer that way. So make sure you always stay updated on that stuff, not just learning it up front. Also, make sure that you are researching into vets near you that can take bearded dragons. They are a little bit more susceptible to parasites, so you want to make sure that you have somewhere to take them. So do research on that, as well as the UVB type, how long your UVB lasts. They do need that UVB lighting. You need to take into account of the heating and the diet to just make sure you do all of your research, and especially like budgeting and all of that, because they're not cheap pets. They're really not. It's not too bad, but they're definitely not as cheap as a lot of people like to tell you. So just make sure you do that research, and that you definitely know what you are getting into, and that you are fully ready way before you actually purchase the animal. Alright guys, well that is pretty much all I have for you today. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that it helped you, or at the very least entertained you. Don't forget to like this video for the algorithm. Comment down below if you have any other beginner mistakes. Maybe I'll make a part 2 to this. All of my links, including my Instagram, my art account, which commissions are open if you want to go check that out, and my Facebook group are all in the description below. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you are into this kind of content, or really any animal kind of content. I upload every single Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, but you can hit the bell if you don't want to remember that. And as always, I will see you guys next week. Bye.